In solitude, the mind gains strength and learns to lean upon itself. What does that mean to you when you hear that?
In solitude, the mind gains strength and learn to lean upon itself. That means that when you're faced with hard times, it defined what you're made of. You know, because we all could say we're strong, but no one know how strong they are until they've been tested. And it's been times when I've been in adverse situation, like in the shoe, where I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And I realized the power of the mind. You know, if I sit here and dwell on my conditions, I could drive myself crazy. I could have a breakdown. But if I decide to calm myself, you know, practice my breathing and thinking positively, I could overcome anything.
That's beautiful. It's words from a wise man named Richard Turner, who's here today on the How to Battle podcast, whom I just met a few hours ago.
Nice meeting you.
But understand your struggle and the way you think, and you're so fresh out, and we'll get into that as far as how long you've been out, but you're so fresh out and back into the free world, and I know how that feels, and I see a lot of just the way that you observe the world, how it's like I originally observed it when I got out. But I just want to say, man, congratulations on being free. The world needs people like you out here, and I'm honored to be able to have you on this podcast, spontaneously, unplanned, but I think we alluded to it earlier, that things happen for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
And God is good. And
Absolutely.
so thank God for bringing you home and for being here today. And I want to give you a copy of my book, Warrior in the Garden. And I know you haven't even seen the book, I haven't talked about the book, but the book I wrote, and it talks about how I became a man in prison. And I'm sure you did too. You went in when you were 19. I went in when I was 19. We became men in prison. And in prison, as you know, we have to become a man real quick. And so I
Absolutely.
talk about the rules that I learned in there, what it meant to be a man inside, and how I brought those out here, and it's helped me to become successful out here. So some of the things that you learned in there are going to help you be as successful out here if you yield those things right.
Thank you.
And we're here, and when I mean we, me and all the people that are here, that have been there where you've been, are here to support you and help you in any way that we can. So here's a copy of my book, man.
Thank you, man. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate you guys,
Yeah.
welcome me the way you guys did. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you. And so, please, for even me, that doesn't really know much about your story, just kind of walk us through, your life all the way up until you got out of prison. And there'll be moments in there where I know that are like significant moments that'll stand out to you that I feel maybe we can kind of explore a little more. But I'm just
Absolutely.
here to really learn about you and your journey.
Absolutely. Well, my journey started off with me, falling behind from the beginning. I was asked a question the other day in this program I'm in, Dad's Back program, and it was speaking on what's the most important time a child should have structure or solid parents in their life. And they were speaking from pre-K, to the age of 5 to 10 to the teenage years. And for me personally, I realized something, that once you have a late start in life, you're playing catch up the rest of your life. And for me, unfortunately, I lost my mother at 4 years old. So I've been playing catch up, and it's impossible to play catch up and have equal opportunity. So that leads to the street life. And I was fascinated by that, because I came after losing my mother to live with my father. And my father at the time was like my hero. This is a man that I looked up to. Like, I didn't have any desires to be a firefighter, a police officer, or any of those things. And to this day, as much as I love my pops, I realized I was never in the presence of a real man. never had a job. He was a hustler. He's from the streets. And he shared with me, I'm the reason you're serving life right now. And, being a man, like you say, growing up to be a man in prison, we're taught to take responsibility. So I have to tell him, I still made bad choices. Regardless of how you raised me, I still made bad choices because my father suffered from denial as well. His go-to line is, I never had a father, so I didn't know how to raise a man, so I did the best I could. And the best he could was raising me to be a hoodlum, raising me, teaching me the things he'd known. From when I was 8 years old, I was in a dope spot on 108 in Normandy. This is my pop's drug house, one of the many drug houses he had. And I wasn't treated as a child, like, based on the circumstances of my life, my mother's dying or whatever. I had to grow up fast, so I'm in the dope house. Like, literally, the dope is being cut up and being served, and I'm his right-hand man. I remember a time he had a friend that had a little bit more insight than he did, named Dave. They used to tell him, like, hey, you can't bring your son with you to recop. Like, that's not what you do. And it's funny because at the time, there was a commercial on in the 80s, 89, when the guy was speaking in the commercial, like, I learned to be this from you, Pops, from Dad.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget those commercials. It's a tricky thing on how a certain thing has an impact on you. And I used to hate Dave, like, man, you messing up my action. But I sit back now and see the wisdom that he had and the insight that he had on understanding, like, the ripple effects and how the things that you do not only impact you, but impact people you don't even know is looking. And so I went from there. In '89, we're in a dope house, and the crazy things that I experienced being in a drug-related house, from the guns, the prostitute, I started normalizing these behaviors. I started understanding the power of like even violence, because my pops was extremely aggressive. He ruled by force and fear. It came a point where I had a little structure in my life when the drug house was raided. Everybody ran, got away. I ended up being the only one that got caught. And I went to a foster home. And school system in LA wasn't the best, nor was the foster system the best.
Still isn't.
Because after 3 years of being in a foster home, they allowed me to go back to live with my father that is still selling drugs. But I guess the family unification thing, regardless of the structure or where a child is going back to, they send me out of the child protective services, go back to live with my father. That was the time when I met Trayvon Harris. We lived in the Baldwin Hill areas, and in those times, it was extremely violent. Like, it was extremely violent. Like, people didn't solve their problems by communication or by lawsuits. If you did something to me, they're gonna shoot you.
Yeah.
And it create these warped belief system that violence was a way that I could get my needs met. Like, the first time I saw a person get shot, this is in '89, going back a little bit. I was happy to see my father. Was in the car with him. And he's driving around. He see a guy that owed him some money. He jumps out the car in broad daylight, gunned the man down. And I'm in the car terrified as a child. But we have always been told, like, to be tough. I don't show emotion. I was more terrified of crying or being afraid. So I just stood there in shock and just started learning how to compartmentalize things at a young age. Father jumped back in the car. We never talked about it until I was in prison, serving 32 years with 2 life sentences. I asked him, I had a chance to ask him, like, what was you thinking to take your 8-year-old son with you to go shoot somebody. And he told me the truest thing ever, which helped me in the path of trying to work on myself. He told me, if you don't know better, you can't do better. And that is so real, man. So now that I know better, I made it my decision, to do better, man. I really, really is big on that. So those were the things that I seen, like people getting shot and no one went to jail. They didn't go to jail in the 90s like that. So that kind of led me to believe, like, this is how I could solve my problem. And I turned around and ended up shooting a man over like 4 pounds of marijuana and went to prison. Luckily, he didn't die. But I went to prison for 32 and was sentenced to 32 years behind attempted murder. And just got home 3 weeks ago.
And how old were you when you did that?
I was 19. I was 19.
19 years old?
19 years old.
Did you ever have a positive male role model in your life growing up?
I absolutely was in the presence of one male role model. And that's when I was in a foster home. And the reason why I was returned back to the care of my father was I was punished. He gave me a spanking one day. I did something wrong. And the belt scratched me. And the CPS worker seen a scratch on me. And that caused them to send me back to my father. But the lady didn't like his parenting style.
Right.
He was a guy that was a psychologist. I realize now, as I look back as an adult, that was the only time in my life I've ever had any structure.
Yeah.
And that was the only male, man that I've been around. Because just because you're a full-grown male doesn't make you a man. That was the first time in my life I was taught discipline, taught the importance of education, taught the importance of the trade-off. That was the first time I was actually explained the reason why I must do certain things. Because it's a different having a child and tell him to do as I say, not as I do. That's why I truly believe everyone is not qualified to be a parent, because it really takes a village to raise a child. So that was the first time in my life that I was in the presence of a man.
That's so true.
Yeah, I tripped off of that to this day. Like,
Yeah.
just because you're a male doesn't make you a man.
Yeah, and like you said, not everybody is ready to be a father, and not everybody should be a father.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where's your father right now?
Oh, my father's in France.
In France?
He's in France.
Oh, so he's still alive.
Still hustling.
Yeah.
Don't speak a lick of French. And I smile when I speak on my father, because I still love my father. I love my father dearly. I looked up to my father. He takes responsibility for the time I served in prison.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for it, though. I had choices. Did I know I have choices? It seemed like at the time I didn't know I have choices, but they were always there. They were always there. But when you're back against the wall, sometimes, you're blinded by the trees in the forest.
Yeah.
It's like scotoma. So those were the things in my neighborhood. I grew up in an era where social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
So I didn't know you had the resources like you did now. Back then, it was limited. They were there always, because I look out now, because I came back home to a totally different world. But the resources were always there. At least I would like to believe so.
Yeah.
I would like to believe so, but
Yeah.
they didn't seem like they were there for prison.
But that's so true, like what you said, because thinking back when you were saying that, when I was a kid, I didn't really remember, like you said, there's choices, there's different things that we could have done, but I don't really remember knowing what those were, or even if I did see them or hear about them, I didn't have the mentor, the guide to help me to get on that path. So you're a young boy looking up to your father, and your father's not teaching you how to play baseball, how to go do things right. He's showing you through his actions of what it means in his way of looking at it to be a man. You hurt people, you respond with violence, you sell drugs. So for you to model that behavior, it's it's so expected And, you know, and for you to like still love your father, I connect with you on that, because same thing, my father influenced the reason why I went down the wrong path into prison, the actions that he took and the things that he did. And like my father's still alive as well, and I've forgiven him, and I talked to him, and you know, we're not super close, but we're trying to like reestablish that. And it's something about that, that for me, it was just like looking at him like, well, I'm not the same person today as I was back then. Let me give him another chance and see who he is today, because he may not be the same person. So do you think your father is like a different person today than he was back then?
Uh, Let me give you a little history about my background because I jumped some stages. My background. My family originally is from Jamaica.
Okay.
So I don't know if that make a different, but I really do believe cultural influence or difference.
Mm-hmm.
My father, unfortunately, never had to face the consequences I've faced. So he never really had to work on himself. In the 80s, he had a crew of Jamaicans behind him. And people used to think Jamaicans were dangerous. But I come to understand that it wasn't that they was dangerous, they were more ignorant. So he never had the education to start understanding, hey, I must take responsibility, I must try to do these things. And he wasn't forced to do it, because he never faced the consequences where he had to be responsible for his action.
Mm-hmm.
He told me they'll never give him life in prison. And the reason why he said that is because he was so ingrained in his criminality.
Yeah.
He was like, even if I'm not guilty, I'm going to buy the best lawyer that money could afford and take the best deal and get out, because he understands the system. The system is not about innocent or guilt. It's about convictions, pleas.
Yeah.
90% of the cases are pleas. So when it comes to looking at him as a different man, I empathize for my father. I empathize for him because I think the worst thing in life is never waking up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, some people say late is better than never. Some people don't agree with that, but I believe late is better than never. And I also learned from my years in prison that issues of mental illness is real.
Yeah.
So I must learn to love people for who they are and not hold their defects against them. And that's my father at the end of the day. I can't force him to take a self-help class.
Right.
I can't force him to take a parenting class. These are choices that he would have to made. But the more I educated myself and learned about like antisocial behavior, I learned it diminished with age. Because he's at the age now, he's not willing to commit a crime because he's not willing to pay the consequences. But that doesn't make him a different person.
Right.
That just make him a more aware of the consequences. But I think he's just him.
Yeah.
He's still him, and I think he'll always be him.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he gave me life. I'm grateful that he gave me life, and I believe in a higher power. I believe, God do everything for a reason, and I'm a survivor. You're a survivor. So if we wouldn't have traveled the path that we traveled, we wouldn't be the man that we are.
That's true. So let's talk about prison. You went in when you were 19. How was prison for you, and in the beginning stages, and then like, when was that aha moment, or was there like a slow transition into the person you are today that ultimately was able to go to the parole board and get out of your multiple life sentences? So how did all of that manifest?
Oh man, that is a story within itself. A story. Uh, my journey through prison. My journey through prison developed in stages. I went through so many stages, so many different level of emotions. because I've always believed in me. I've always believed that given the opportunity, I could do something with my life. Given the opportunity, I wouldn't be out here harming people. So I went through the stage of denial. You know, I went through every stage of denial, from rationalizing, from blaming others, blaming my circumstances, being angry because I felt like I wasn't given a fair chance. I never even had a chance, you know, because I look back now and realize that life is about position, and the positions that I was born into, like, you know, position me to fail. You know what I mean? And I wasn't smart enough to see that. So I went through all these different cycles in prison, man, of blaming others. Blaming, was angry because I realized I couldn't make a change. Like, it was just one me. And it was just such a big system to just swallow everybody up, like, regardless of who you were as a person within. Like, okay, you did a crime, we're just going to throw you away. Because I was a termer. And I was like, wow, what happened to second chances? So that had me angry for years. Like, damn, there's no second chances. I literally believed that in the United States of America, you had to kill someone, take a life, in order for your life to be taken. That is not the truth. So these stages of like hurt, anger, these different emotions that I face, being sentenced at 19 to life.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, can I get a break? This is crazy. You got me reliving. Can I get a break?
Yeah.
All right, appreciate you. You gonna turn the camera off?
No, we can.
No, we're gonna run
It's
it.
recording.
All right, yeah,
No, it's good. You know, you're so new out here.
Yeah.
I get it, man.
Man, that's crazy. Like, cause
Yeah.
I'm home now, but that's rough. Like,
Yeah.
living in prison. Like when they sentence you to prison
Watch your thing.
at
Watch
19.
your pocket.
Yeah,
Yeah, take your time, man.
yeah, that's crazy.
No worries.
Oh, we back.
Yeah. And
Yeah. But that was just tough. Just like trying to like relive.
No, yeah,
that was a part of
yeah.
my life. Like, I never want to like relive like the prison life of when you first hit the prison. When I first hit prison, I seen so many crazy things, which is crazy. I seen guys that literally, because our maladaptive behavior is shaped on movies.
Yeah.
It's funny things that it was a podcast on that today. Because a lot of people watch Blood In, Blood Out and all these crazy
Menace to
movies.
Society, all these
Yeah.
movies.
But when I first hit prison, I was angry because I was like, man, let the revolution begin. And it's not what I thought. Like, prison was a place where it was dangerous. You could lose your life there. But it was like, what I saw in the movies is not what it was. You didn't have like guys attacking the police every day and all that. I remember one day when I first got there, was this guy who was like, man, I'm glad I met you guys because I was scared to come out to the yard. You know, I was scared. And like 2 weeks later, you see him with tattoos everywhere, and he the hardest dude on the yard. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So, but just going back and thinking about how it impacted me when I first came to prison, it was just a stage of hopelessness, bro. It was a hopelessness, like my dreams of having kids is gone. Everything is just gone. Like life, like, you know, to this day, I have a friend right before I went to the board. I was telling her I have life, and she's like, what do that means? Because most civilians can't even comprehend that.
Right.
She thought life was like 7 years. She's like, life, what does that mean? I'm not trying to explain to her, like, I must put in the work, show my growth, show my change, show them I'm no longer the person that I used to be. But she couldn't comprehend that. But the first stages of prison, it was a time that I really struggled in prison coming through. When I hit Corcoran, it was the first prison I hit, Old Corcoran, and just walking around the track, you be like, oh, this can't be life. Like, you start thinking crazy thoughts, like, well, maybe I can get the gun tower to shoot me. You know, I don't know if you seen the movie Life, but it was a crazy movie because even in that movie, they was thinking like, well, maybe I could just run and grab the electric fence. And like to have these real thoughts that you'll never thought, like suicide is a cowardly act. But to really sit back and truly have these thoughts and to overcome them is amazing.
It's people wouldn't understand that.
No,
You
they
know what I
wouldn't.
mean? Unless they're there. And I think that the fact that you can touch on that, that a strong man like you that went through all you went through as a kid, went into prison, and now you're in an environment where you have to be strong, can have thoughts of that. Just shows the humanity in people, regardless of what you've been through, what you've done. Like at the end of the day, you just like you were holding on to something though, because you didn't do those acts that ended your life. You're here today, and you didn't give up, and you maintained. What was that like how did you get through that? How did you cope with that? And was it faith? Was it just like it's like you said, people just don't understand. You go in with that life sentence. What helped you just get through all those moments in the beginning and the challenges?
You know what's crazy about that is I hear the faith, it has to be faith overall, right? Faith,
Right.
faith. Even
Yeah.
though there is no vision of the way of overcoming it, having that faith that God has to have a higher purpose for my life than this, help you get through that.
Yeah.
But even though you have the faith to believe that, it's time where the doubt will kick in too, because you'd be like, damn, okay, it got to be a higher purpose to life than this, but it ain't no way out. Like when I came to prison, a life sentence and a life without sentence were the equivalents of the same thing.
Yeah.
It didn't make a difference. Like it was the same thing. I believe, was that Greg Davis that said the only way you're gonna get out of prison is in a pine box. And that was the truth. So it was like being in a situation where it's like, man, this is not what I saw happening to my father's friends or to my father and them, because they were not going to jail. So it's like, damn. The thing about curses is, I mean, they speak in the Bible is, they said a man could curse his children. And that is so true. And it's not necessarily to say putting a curse on them, like we may think with, they're going to fall and break a leg or something.
Yeah.
But you curse them with the knowledge that you give them, you know what I mean? To where they are suffering from the things that you're doing. So the things that I saw being done in the neighborhood, the numerous shooting, all these different things, wasn't nobody going to prison for it in the 90s. None of my father's friends was being told on because they were hoodlums. They had a stronghold on the community. Now I realize they are horrible people, because even when a crime was committed, they homeboys is not going to jail because ain't no witness going to be willing to come testify.
Right.
And this is what I saw in my social circle from my father. You know what I mean? So the fact that and I'm not promoting any form of criminality. The fact that at 19, I didn't have no friends like that to where, they will stop someone to go to court for me. And not just that, my belief system was so warped that I believe if you're living a criminal lifestyle, you don't go to court. That's how foolish I was at 19. But I realized like later in life how the brain doesn't develop, because I ended up having a speeded trial because I believe the person that I harmed by attempted to take his life wouldn't come to court on me because he was in the streets. But it just shows you how foolish a kid was. But back to what you said, not to be off subject, about surviving prison. Once I did the foolish things that I did to go to prison, surviving prison was bleak. Fate helped me get through the first stage of prison. There were stages of prison to where just having an iron will and a strong determination, because I've always been determined, helped me get past it as well. So it was stages, it was gradual stages. I will not sit here and told you there's an antidote or there's a miracle pill to get through stages, because some people didn't make it. I've seen people literally take their lives because a girlfriend left them, because they just felt this was dark times.
Yeah.
But Fortunately, I just had that desire, that burning desire to be able to show the world like this is more than, I'm more than my worst decision.
Yeah.
I'm more than this bad choice that I made. And that was a strong motivating factor as well. Even though I didn't have the solution or the idea or the answer to how I was gonna show the world this, I had that desire.
Yeah.
I had the desire, and that drove me. That drove me.
Yeah, that call something that was there that was calling you or telling you that there was more for you than this life. That this is as hard as this is. There's something there. There's a glimmer of hope, and like you said, I think that was God. And ultimately, you're here today, and it's like, man, I tell
And
people,
thinking about prison, talking about
yeah,
prison is rough. Talking
yeah, I
about
know,
yeah,
and I commend you for being here so early in your freedom to talk.
yeah.
That's takes strength within itself, but that's your willpower, like that strength. Because most people, I'm not ready yet, or I don't want to talk. Whereas you're here and you're like, let's do it. I overcame the board. I can do this, and it's like,
Oh, the board didn't ask
right?
me to talk about how I survived it, though.
Yeah, those are deep questions.
The board didn't ask me
Yeah.
that. The board just asked you like the things that you
Yeah.
worked on to define who you are today.
Yeah.
The board didn't ask you like, how the hell did you survive this?
Because they don't care.
They really don't
Yeah,
care.
they don't care. They
They
don't care because like, to them, they just need something on paper to say, okay, he checked all the boxes. So now if he gets out and messes up, it's not in our hands because he checked the boxes. He did the groups. He did that.
Yeah.
But it's like at the deeper core, there's something more there, more powerful. And I really want to know, like, when did you figure out or find the path to, okay, there's a light possibly there. Maybe I'm seeing people just like me go home. Like there's letting people go now. Like when did that happen? And then what kind of like got you on that path leading up to your release date?
This is the crazy thing, right? Because I've learned from my studies to get through the board process that trauma is real. And trauma is so real that you could start accepting bad shit to happen to you. Like you come to a point where you're like, oh man, yeah, they say you could go home, but so much bad shit been happening to me my whole life. Like, yeah, okay, whatever, they just talking. So around 2016, it was a big movement on, Black Lives Matter, equal fair sentencing act, and Scott Butnick and Kim Kardashian, all of them started to get under this movement because of the massive incarceration. And I benefited from that whole situation because the laws changed, and based on the fact that I followed up under the juvenile, I was told I could go to the board in 2024. But in 2016, you thinking like 2024, man, that's hella far. Like, I still ain't gonna never get out of here because I still got to survive where I'm at. But during that time, it started to like a glimmer of hope, or a glimmer of just a speck of light. Just a speck of light was there. But so much bad things have happened throughout my whole life. Getting a life sentence, 2 life sentences at 32. I mean at 19, because I was sentenced to 7 to life, plus a 25-year to life enhancement. And I'm like, oh man, okay. They say you could get out, but that created a speck of light. So I've always been interested in growth. I've always been interested in trying to understand life. So I've always read the spiritual books and, try to understand, because there has to be more to life than just prison. One just don't get born and you just throw you in prison before you understand life itself. But I started to get a spark of hope then, but I didn't see it because it's still the stabbings on the yard. I still have to be on the yard. The worst thing about prison is not actually the time you have to do itself, but the people that you have to do the time with. That's the worst, just a horrible thing, because I am stuck on a yard. It's people that's not conducive to don't stab me, man. I'm trying to get some education. I'm trying to do something better with my life. So it still like forces you to be in a world inside of a world. So even though that spark was there, I still had to still survive where I was living and adapt to that. And it came in like 2017. They told me I could get a possible override to a level 3 because all those years before I was on a 4-yard, a maximum security yard. And it seems like once you're on a maximum security yard with a life sentence, it was impossible for you to get off. That's just how the point system was structured. But the prison system started to change. And in 2017, I started seeing people go on home. Like people that would have 30 years, 35 years, they started to let them out off the 3-yard. So I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
they're going home. But I was still like in doubt because so much bad shit that happened to me my whole life that,
it's not gonna happen to me.
you know what I mean? So it was just one of those things. But it's really, the seed started to germinate then. Like maybe this is possible. But it's like, man,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen to me. Like,
Right.
so my behavior continued, even though I wasn't as reckless as I was when I first came to prison, I still have reservations, and reservations is a horrible thing. I still had reservations on what I believe respect was, how I believe a person could talk to me. So these foolish, silly things that I held because of the prison conditioning could have potentially kept me in prison.
Right.
So, I tell people all the time, man, there was a divine power watching over me.
Yeah.
Truly. There's no way I could say I did this on my own.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
And that's a good segue into you, the divine, guiding you to run into Trayvon Harris, who was on the How to Battle podcast. I was also in the cell with for 2 years, and I've seen him grow so much. You run into who is Trayvon to you, and how did you run into each other? And now, who's Trayvon to you in your life now?
Trayvon Harris is my brother. Blood couldn't make us no closer.
Yeah.
Trayvon Harris and my fathers were in the streets. They were part of the crew that I spoke on earlier. And unfortunately, Trayvon Harris' father at the time was smarter than my father, and he was the leader. And the competition in the drug world at the time viewed his father to be a threat. So they got him sent to prison on a crime that he did not commit, on a life sentence. This is in the 80s. You don't get out of prison in the 80s. Unfortunately, his father died in prison, and my father became like his surrogate father while his father was in prison. So Trayvon lived with us because his father went to prison. So he lived with my father, his mom, his aunt, his sister. And it was a time that things was really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I asked Trey as we got older, like, man, was you ever afraid of living in the areas that we lived in? He's like, nah, man, I felt safe the whole time. And I was in terror from living over there because I understood the danger. I was old enough to understand the danger that was surrounding us. But it just goes to show, I shared that because it goes to show the level of how trauma could impact different people.
Yeah.
Like you and I could grow up in the same household and experience something traumatic, and your life turned out to be extremely different from mine.
Yeah.
Trayvon is a big reason why I'm sitting here today, because the divine power that was guiding over me, over my life, over his life, some reason brought us back. For 27 years, we weren't in contact. And out of all the prisons in California, all 32 prisons, we end up on the same yard. he just had beard, because I just my little bro.
Yeah.
He just got a beard now, and I'm like, what the hell? What happened to you? But it just shows you how time is valuable, man. Because I've missed all these years with him, but this is still my little bro, man. You know,
Yeah.
when I had a bicycle, he was on the handlebar. I'm riding him around on the handlebar. You know, now he's picking me up. You know, so it's
Man.
just a beautiful circle of life. So. When I seen Trey, man, Trey was way more articulate and insightful than I was. But God do everything for a reason, because I seen Trey, and Trey was like, "This is what you got to do, Rick, to get out of prison." And he started showing me his accomplishment. I was like, man, hell no, man, I'll never get out of prison. I'll
Right.
never get out of prison. Like, I ain't got none of that shit. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell? He's like, man. But it also shows the power of incremental process, man, and that determination. Because once he showed me that, man, I just hit the ground running and checking off little things at a time, and was able to get out on my initial. But when I first seen what he had, I had none of that. Like, I had no idea of what a relapse prevention plan was, what an insight statement was, what a statement of remorse was. I had no idea how to show my growth and my transformation and show who I am today. But I was determined. And I was driven. But for a minute, he took my breath away, because I was like, man, but I wouldn't quit though. You know, it's not in me to give up. And I think that was a part of the reason why I was able to survive the penitentiary as well. But oh man, I'm telling you, when he showed me his portfolio, it was like, this is what you have to do, because it's like a resume.
Yep.
I'm like, man,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. Like, no way. It's like, man, this is what you have to do. This is what you need.
Yeah. You got to earn it.
You got to earn your way out, man, because they're not letting you out. You
Yeah.
got to earn your way out.
Yeah.
But it just seemed that was the second stage where it just seemed hopeless. I could have been frustrated and be like, man, the hell with all that. I'll never get all that. But it shows like being determined and not trying to accomplish everything overnight, how powerful that could be. Because next thing you know, I had a portfolio. I was like, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, I truly believe that like the greatest people that come to us in the form of leadership or mentorship, doesn't matter their age, but I feel that those people usually don't come to us for our entire lifetime or even a big portion of it. It's always the people we encounter for like short periods, like a season or a moment, that truly impact our lives with something, showing us something, like being an example to us. And then we kind of just never forget that. And then it sets us on a path, because you guys ended up separating after a while.
yeah,
and you had to continue to fight basically fight, took what you took from him, but keep learning and exploring. And eventually you had success.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah. And so when did you get out, exact date, and how did that feel?
I got out on 7/12/2024.
Wow.
So that's July. So I've been out approximately like 3, going on 4 weeks now. And it's still surreal. It's still surreal. You know, sometimes I got to pinch myself, but I realize, like, man, God had a purpose for my life, and I'm here, and I'm going to make the best of it. But it's still surreal because after being gone, like I spoke to you about, 8,880 days, just to be out less than 30, like, you still just in awe. You know, I'm in shock. You know, I am excited. So it's all these different emotions that I'm dealing with again, all over. But I'm open and I'm not afraid to ask for help. Because you definitely have to ask for help, because I don't know how to use the phone. It makes you feel stupid at times, but it's okay. I'll smile and I welcome the challenge, because I look at it like, man, if I could survive prison and all the things that I've survived in life, this shouldn't be a problem. You know, this shouldn't be a problem, because, you know, my best day in prison, you know, is nothing compared. If it's my worst day out here, I'll choose you know, so this shouldn't be a problem. This shouldn't be a problem
Well,
whatsoever. But I'm still in shock.
apply the same thing you did when you looked at Trayvon's portfolio, and as overwhelming as that may seem, and is like so much to see at once and how the world is that way and more, know that like if you apply that same commitment and work ethic that you did to get out of prison out here, you'll be successful. Because like I'm telling you, I know so many people now, I've met highly successful people from all walks of life. The one thing that separates them from everybody else is this: they never give up and they work hard, and you've already done that.
Absolutely.
You know what, we know what's required, and you never had the guarantee of anything. Like you're doing all this work to go into a board that potentially could say no and continue to say no, and you did it anyway because like you believed in yourself, and then you fell in love with the process because as you were growing, you probably felt better about yourself. Absolutely. Same thing out here, man. Like just and ask for help. Like men in prison helped you. You learned from Trayvon, and I'm sure others. Same thing out here, and you can accomplish anything. You can get anywhere, and that's what I do. And I feel like those that are out here now being successful, that's what they do. Apply that same mindset, and like you said, continue to ask for help, man.
Man, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Man. Absolutely.
What are some of your just like immediate goals that you want to accomplish?
Oh man, my immediate goals, and I've been checking them off. One of the things I've done, like you just spoke on, is I applied the same strategy that got me out here. When I seen Trayvon portfolio, what I did was I made a list of 10 goals that I want to accomplish, and they don't have to be extravagant, just small goals. And or whatever, within reasonable goals that I can achieve with a deadline, because a goal without a timeline is just a dream.
Yeah.
And I start accomplishing them. So those are some of the things that I've been doing out here. First, go to the DMV, take my driver's test, get my license, accomplish that, open up a bank account. Small goals, and just 10 of them. So I'm crossing them off. I'm at 5 now, trying to get a car, cross that off, and the basics. So, but my goal is to own my own company, to work for myself.
Yeah.
And also I want to give back. I love what you guys are doing. I've always been told, hey man, you should do a podcast. And I was like, I don't want to be no prophet. I'm cool. I'm more seclusive in private life, and that may goes back to how I was raised. But I've heard of something that I wanted to do, which is still on the ground, but just being able to give others hope, give others hope, help others evolve, is something that I would love to do. I would love to do that as well. But I definitely been achieving my goals.
Awesome.
Everything that I've written down so far, and simple goals.
Yeah, surround yourself with great people.
Absolutely.
Find and even like, the woman that you bring into your life. I don't know if you have somebody, but if you do find somebody, or you're exploring that, a great woman is going to elevate you. A great woman is going to help you to get to your goals and dreams, support you along the way. And it's the opposite with the bad woman. So
Absolutely.
Choose the people that you allow into your life very carefully, from the women to the friends, to everybody, even where you work. Because like you spend so much of your life in a place that you didn't want to be. Now, like, know that you're bringing value to this world. Like your experiences and your work ethic and drive. People all over the world want you with them to help, grow whatever they're doing. But then also when you start your own thing, and you build your own thing, it's the same thing. You're going to look for people that were like you, that are like you, that have that same drive.
Absolutely.
So yeah, don't limit yourself, man. And like I said, we're here to support you, man. In any
I
way
appreciate
that,
that, man. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you
too,
so
man.
much, man.
I really appreciate you calling
Yeah.
us. That was a pleasure. I did not think talking about prison would impact me the way it impacted me. Sometimes I wonder, is it a good thing to kind of try to bury the past? Because maybe I've buried it, now that I'm out. But at the same time, I haven't forgotten about my past. But it shocked me to think of how it impacted me, just because I have never given that thought.
Yeah.
Like, how did you survive prison?
It's a deep one, and
never
thank you
gave
for
that.
being open to that. And also, someday there might be a kid that was once you,
Absolutely.
right? That might need you to re-explore that pain that's deep down in there to maybe impact that person to walk a better path, right?
Absolutely.
Because we all have that younger, we always say, what would we say to our younger self?
Younger self.
But I'm telling you, you're going to run into a time out here where you're going to have actually run into that younger self, and you're going to see that person, and it's like, what are you going to say, And that's that moment. So
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
God has a purpose for you, and you're at the beginning stages, and I feel it, and I'm so excited to see where you go.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, congratulations on being home,
Man,
brother.
thank you. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing being home. I
Good stuff, bro.
didn't even cry for the board.
Yeah, it's all good. Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you, big dog.